Mrs. Yarodaversi.
Ave Satanas! Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Greetings, heathens. Welcome to Hail Satan. This is the podcast exploring Satanism, culture, and life in general through the eyes of modern Satanists. My name is Joseph Rose. I'm a member of the finest congregation in the universe. We're called Satanic Delco, and we do welcome members from anywhere in the world. If you want to learn a little bit more about us, visit satanicdelco.com. Today on the show, we're going to revisit the Satanic Bible. Before we get to it, though, let's welcome a bunch of rad Satanists that have chosen to join up with the whole gang through Patreon. We've got Pooby Wooby, C-H-E, I am not saying that name, Nikki, Emily, Jake, Jessica, Rob, Paige, Keokamis, Caleb, Matthew, Kate, Amy, David, Lord Lurch, Justin, Cosmic Goat, Tori, Joe, Gregory, Jennifer, Core, Dorian, Josh, and Umbra. Well, goddamn, guys, thank you all very much. It's still a wild feeling to have reached so many people and to have so many choose to support it. I appreciate you all very much, and I'm happy to be at your service. If you have a moment out there, please visit the website at hailsatanpodcast.com. You will find links to join me on social media, a form to send me an email, which I encourage you to do, and a link to join up with us all on Patreon. We've got a few different tiers to choose from on there with various benefits, including the amazing Greetings from Hell Satanic Postcard of the Month Club. That is the most direct way you can support me and this show. If you'd like to do that, visit hailsatanpodcast.com. All right. So we're going to revisit the Satanic Bible. It had been quite a few years since I last read it, up until Satanic Delco decided to do it for our book club. So I read it then. And in preparing for these episodes, I read it again. I found that your experience with a book or other forms of media can often be largely defined by your intention or expectations going into it. If I wanted to make an episode where I just nitpick this whole book and dwell on which parts sound silly or which parts Anton borrowed or plagiarized, I could do that. And I could surely fill an episode with that stuff. But that isn't constructive, and it isn't my goal. So going into the book now, I already know that there's going to be plenty of things that I don't vibe with, and plenty of things that make me roll my eyes. But my real goal is to find and focus on the parts that I do enjoy and connect with. I want to find the pieces that work in the context of our outsider Satanism. So even if your mind feels a little closed off to Anton and his 1960s take on Satanism, don't be too quick to throw the satanic baby out with the bathwater. It's our job to keep our minds open in the way that we expect people to keep their minds open to us. So let's do it. In 1966, Anton LaVey formed the Church of Satan, and in 1969, the Satanic Bible was published. It has reportedly sold over 1 million copies. Like I said, I've recently reread the book, and to help me get a fresh perspective on it from a non-Satanist, I've enlisted the help of our good pal, Jerry. Welcome back to the show, Jerry.
Hello. Every good Satanist needs a guy with Jerry in his name.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm Jerry Malcolm Wood.
Okay. So, Jerry, I gave you the task of reading the Satanic Bible and taking some notes. Did you do any of this?
I read most of it.
Yes.
And again, I'm almost done. And I didn't take notes, but I did highlight some things.
You did not take any notes.
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because this is a mission statement. What I did find most fascinating was understanding how this man grew up. This Anton LaVey, the carnivals, the religious organ player, all that neat stuff. It really gives me insight. And doing what I do for a living, being car sales, we have to quantify people sometimes. This is perfect. And now I can see why he has such disdain for such things, and seeing the hypocrisy in it all. And it was quite eye-opening.
I assume you had never read this book at all before.
No, there's no real reason for me to do it. And listen, he doesn't make it easy to take him seriously. It was all theater. And that's what I liked about it, is that it's a lot of drama, a lot of theater.
He is quite dramatic.
For sure. And really, I could have written this book myself. Hey, this Bible says to do one thing. I'll just do the opposite.
All right.
And that's just what I'm looking at.
So when I said, please go read the Satanic Bible, we're going to talk about it. What were your expectations of it going in before you read it?
I have a rudimentary understanding of the TST, which I enjoy, the little tenets. It's just basically don't be a dick. And there are pieces of that. You can see where TST borrowed from this man's doctrine.
Yes, I like that you said that.
It borrowed heavily from it. But this is also a guy who's just saying these little factoids or whatever he's trying to put across is be human more than anything. But this is an aggressive human.
Yes, he does lean aggressive.
For sure.
I think, yeah.
For sure. But this is just being human. Indulge in yourself. You only have one go round. They don't believe in a physical devil.
That's correct.
And again, would, but growing up in the Christian church, you would assume that they do believe in a lower power.
Right. As a person who's just, your average person out there in the world, somebody says, hey, Satanist, of course, we always deal with this. The assumption is, oh, well, they worship the devil.
For sure. And he didn't, I'll say one thing, LaVey didn't try to tell people, dissuade them from that.
Right. He was not too concerned with that.
And he had the look, Ming the Merciless look from Flash Gordon. He took it and he ran with it. This was written and then published in 1969 or something like that during the Summer of Love. And you can't 1969 was a very tumultuous year, or the years that led up to it. A lot of equal rights, a lot of movements and all that stuff. And you can't help but think that this played a part in it. So this is a unique ingredient in the times. So there was video of people naked on tables.
Yeah, I think he definitely made a splash in the late 60s pop culture.
How receptive were people back then? And how scared was the establishment? Because you got to think, the greatest generation was just coming out of World War I, World War II, and World War I, and World War II, and they had a Norman Rockwell version of life, which is very, it's vanilla.
Yeah.
All of the stuff, the Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, fucking the gay rights, all this stuff, and then you throw this into the mix, it had to blow the establishment's mind.
Yeah.
So
some old people were probably freaking out.
Oh, fuck yeah. Now Satan's involved? God damn it.
Yeah. I wonder who was freaking out more, old people or like hippies? I bet some hippies were maybe freaking out too.
I don't know. I mean, you think about the psychedelic movement was around there, so it might have just played into it.
And Anton has said in so many words that he was not really a fan of hippie culture, but Anton had some hippie in him. Mm-hmm. He had some hippie vibes. Well, yeah. Look, again, he did lean aggressive, but he had some things.
Mm-hmm. But think about it. When you pissed off a hippie, what do they do? Went right into the streets.
Yeah.
Protests and all that stuff. Stuff we're dealing with today. Think about the generation before, though. Yeah. They had to go through this whole thing. So people are going to Woodstock. We're seeing pictures of Woodstock. Women have their shirts off. Men are walking around naked. No one's cleaning themselves anymore.
Yeah.
So and then throw this into it, man. Shit. And I feel like in some ways I'm not part, but I've been witnessing it even now. Like the TST thing is sort of like fallen into place with what's going on today.
Yeah.
And so the history is repeating in a weird way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. Shall we get into this book?
Sure.
All right. With the founding of the Church of Satan and the publishing of the book, Anton gave birth to what many of us call modern Satanism. I'm mostly interested in covering the actual content of the book rather than all of the circumstances surrounding its creation and publication because, like most things related to Anton LaVey, the details vary greatly depending on who's telling the story. So we'll work our way through the book and discuss anything that stands out one way or another. The one variation that different versions of the book have is the introduction. There have been a few of them over the years written by different people. The version I've been looking at has an introduction written by Burton H. Wolfe. That's the same one you had, right?
Yeah.
Burton Wolfe. So let's start there. The very first sentence of the book says, "On a winter's evening in 1967, I drove cross town in San Francisco to hear Anton Szandor LaVey lecture at an open meeting of the Sexual Freedom League." Now, there's nothing special about that passage or about that event, but I've highlighted certain things throughout the book as a reminder of some of the core themes that LaVey focuses on again and again, and sexuality and sexual freedom is one of those things. Aside from that, Burton Wolfe basically goes on to recount meeting and interviewing Anton, and this one part stood out to me. Wolfe writes, "As I listened to LaVey talk that first time, I realized at once there was nothing to connect him with the occult business. He could not even be described as metaphysical. The brutally frank talk he delivered was pragmatic, relativistic, and above all, rational." Now that part is interesting because you'll find that many TST-aligned people and even non-Satanists say that LaVey is too metaphysical, which I suppose is based on their own interpretation of things that Anton says, most likely related to his use of the term magic, which we'll get into later. But it's interesting that his rationality is actually what stood out to Burton Wolfe. Now, Jerry, you've been around even longer than I have, and surely you've seen bits of Anton here and there through your travels. What's your general impression of him as a casual onlooker?
Well, I've seen him on Dick Cavett, I believe. But the first time I saw him was, I was in Sunday school, and they were telling us.
Really?
Sunday school was the first time I saw him. Europe had a lot of his imagery. In Europe, they have these. That's the first time I saw him. Actually, it's funny. It brings me back. It's 1986, and by the way, I'm only 5 months older than you. So it's 1986. And they have these cylindrical, like, you know how you have ad boards where people post things? And there was a picture of him, like, whited out, like the old school, like, poster picture. I think it was a picture. I think it was a concert for, like, Motorhead or something like that. And there was a picture of him, and he had that his horned cowl.
Yeah, I love that thing.
And again, and then flash forward, we get out 1988. There was this video that the Sunday school teacher played where they played, like, told us about the devil's influences. Oh. And of course he was
were they playing you like Satanic Panic videos?
Yeah, we got a bunch of them, but it was just a bad situation. And then I got turned on to Black Sabbath that way. Very great video. If I can find it again, if I can get it. Again, but you
I might have that.
Yeah, dude, I'll send it to you. But then hear him in interviews, very well spoken, man, confident. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a confidence that comes from everybody immediately being skeptical of you.
Yeah. It just really stood out to me. It's funny that Burton Wolfe had this impression. The thing that stood out was how rational Anton is. Whereas, it's common enough for people's impression of Anton to be wacky fucking Anton, getting crazy.
It is. And really, I think the luminaries of the time had him on. I mean, I think Cavett was the guy I saw him.
I don't remember. I know he was on the Joe Pine show very early on.
Sorry, it wasn't Cavett. But I think once you get past the bombast of an all evil and just get to the person, all of it sounds irrational. Even when I was first introduced to this TST thing, and then, while not being a Satanist, walking into it with you, it just was I was shocked that there was really nothing to do with it. The imagery is what fucks it all up, but it really is a nice piece of business. But it's atheists, it's former Christians, you are, as an outsider, you're shocked at how normal everyone is, because you assume all black hair, eyeliner, running into people who work at pharmaceutical companies, all that shit. It was it's eye-opening for a lot of us.
Did anything stand out to you in what Burton Wolfe had to say in that introduction?
No, it was the same experience I had, and a lot of it was, and then just going back through it, I mean, I was shocked. I loved his upbringing. Like I said in the beginning, I love the fact
stuff,
that he was a self-taught piano player, organ, carnival in the church in the mornings, carnivals at night. Mm-hmm. That I would love to live that life.
Sure,
I would love to be a musician first and foremost.
Yeah,
because even if you're funny, a musician playing guitar will get all the sex. So it just bothers the shit out of me. But again, rational. The whole theme of this thing is going to be like, I didn't realize how human everyone was.
Right. All right, shall we move on to the preface of the book?
Sure.
It is written by Anton himself, of course, and he starts it all with the following. This book was written because, with very few exceptions, every tract and paper, every secret grimoire, all the great works on the subject of magic are nothing more than sanctimonious fraud, guilt-ridden ramblings and esoteric gibberish by chroniclers of magical lore unable or unwilling to present an objective view of the subject. So, right off the bat, Anton starts throwing around talk of magic while letting the reader know that he is the ultimate authority and most everyone else is a fraud. He was not lacking in confidence at this point in his life. He goes on to basically discredit the majority of material out there related to magic, mysticism, all of that stuff. And he wraps up the preface with, "Herein you will find truth and fantasy. Each is necessary for the other to exist, but each must be recognized for what it is. What you see may not always please you, but you will see. Here is satanic thought from a truly satanic point of view." I really dig those last couple of lines there.
I took that completely different than you.
Yeah?
I didn't think he was discrediting anything. I think he was just stating the obvious. Magic as a whole is sort of like...
Well, no, he's discrediting the material out there, the books and information written by these, in his view, charlatans.
So we're looking at
bullshitters.
Witch doctors and stuff like that.
Yeah, people writing the books, he just thought these people are frauds. So in this section, he's making it clear that none of this stuff will be coming from any type of bullshit purity culture. Mm-hmm. There may be some uncomfortable truths in there, and I find that to be true of real life.
I do too. I agree completely, but I just looked at it as him just stating the obvious. Again, I just didn't see him as discrediting anybody. I was like, yeah, fantasy is magic, magic is fantasy, and none of it's real.
I really like that last part, just that, you're going to find truth and fantasy. They're both necessary, and what you see may not please you, but you will see. I love that.
I would love to hear the trailer guy read that. But you will see.
All right. Did anything else stand out about the preface to you?
What I liked about it, it didn't aim directly at the Christian religion, which is
Sure.
I've always taken umbrage with atheists and all that stuff going after everyone, but I'm going after only Christians because it's mostly what we deal with in this country.
Yes.
There's a million other things that it could be very well false. People are afraid to go after Islam. Any type of other.
Not me.
Well, I understand. I'm terrified, but no one goes after that. No one does the other ones. It's like, okay, Christianity. Yeah, while they are wrong in some cases and right in others, it's not the only foe you have to rational thought.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Anton wanted to carve out his own space in the occult world.
Sure.
And maybe, if he's making any effort to discredit other people in that space, it is surely because it's self-beneficial, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, you go after number one. The only way you're going to be king is to kill the king.
Yeah.
And so,
and at the same time, I don't want to dismiss it as just Anton marketing or something, but it's reasonable to me to believe that Anton felt like these people were wrong or frauds or whatever.
This is
Sure.
This is groundbreaking for the person who sees it as such.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting book.
So then we get to the prologue, which is very short. This section is mostly a wacky word salad written with words like hath and doth, despite being from the late 1960s. But at the end of it, he gets somewhere. It ends with, "No longer shall man's salvation be dependent on his self-denial, and it will be known that the world of the flesh and the living shall be the greatest preparation for any and all eternal delights." That part hints at a real central theme of LaVeyan Satanism. To me, that central theme is a focus on or celebration of the self, including our natural human desires. He mentions self-denial and our salvation being dependent on that. Christians make damn near a whole religion out of insincerely denying so much of what makes us human. According to Christian doctrine, by simply being born, humans inherit a tainted nature. They call it original sin. From that point on, we're essentially making up for sins that we haven't even committed and denying almost every desire we have, in order to prove ourselves worthy to the man upstairs. And of course, all of this is made more ridiculous because, spoiler alert, guys, there is no man upstairs. Are you with me, Jerry?
No one's born without sin. Children are inherently selfish. They are. So that's why you baptize them as babies.
Yes.
Because you're born, you're crying, you're needy, you're wrathful. All babies come out angry.
Yeah.
So that's wrath.
They're fairly stupid.
They're pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. The babies are pissed, and so that's a sin, and they're always born with sin. I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, nothing crazy in that section.
No,
but he's really getting at, he's preparing you. Well, that leads us to a very important part of the book, the 9 Satanic Statements. Fun fact, Jerry, early on in the Satanic Temple, they had the 9 fundamental tenets, which were, of course, edited down to 7 eventually. Do you suspect that they were directly inspired by LaVey there, or was it merely a coincidence?
I think this directly responded. And 9 is an odd number. It's one short of 10, which
right.
I think was done by design.
Perhaps.
The 10 rules is you go to 10, then you're lampooning or you're copying.
Yeah, it's too similar.
9 or 11 would be fine.
Yeah.
9 or 11 would be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was done by design, and you can see the foundations of this TST in this.
Oh yeah. I'm sure we're gonna touch on lots of that stuff.
They didn't copy complete, but
how
can it not be
every
derivative?
Philosophy is drawing from pre-existing sources to inform their opinions and views and their philosophy. We know the background of a lot of this book. We know about Might is Right. We know about Ayn Rand. We know about so many of the sources that Anton pulled from, when he was piecing this all together. And so it makes sense that, of course, if the Satanic Temple is going to come along and create their satanic deal, of course, those guys in the beginning, they were down with the Church of Satan.
They're going to be derivative. Yeah, indeed. The fact that I know so much about this Anton LaVey, we know as much as we know because he was a very public figure. And I don't know about, God, I hear him on a Satanist podcast. I forget the other guys with the white eye. Rex Grossman.
Doug. That's Doug.
That's Doug. Doug with the white eye. He's good. We know a little bit about him, but you don't know about his partner. And I don't even know if that's his real name, the Malcolm Jerry guy.
His real name is Kevin.
Kevin, is that really his name?
That is his
do we
name.
know anything about him?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know shit about him. All right,
he's a rich man named Kevin.
All right, well there it is. But like where the guy with the white eye, which is gonna piss everyone off who reads it. Yeah. I read about this LaVey. Don't know anything. I forgot. Purged everything about the TST. In fact, we even watched the movie and I forgot the fucking guy's name.
Good job, Jerry.
Sorry, bro. I think that this was such a bombastic, out there, in-your-face character that it's easy to discredit him. And while it will make everyone else look a little bit more sophisticated, not being that guy.
Yeah.
Because the guy with I'm gonna look his name up, the white-eyed man.
Lucian Greaves.
His
name is Doug. When we say Doug, that's Lucian Greaves.
Lucian Greaves is a sophisticated, evil-looking guy. But is sophisticated, the way he speaks. And Anton spoke too. But you will never, ever cleanse or purge him and that little cow with the 2 little devil ears in front of a naked woman on a plank.
Yeah.
You can't ever wash that away.
Can't hate on him.
And it also is really bad that it's done in that grainy 1960s footage.
I love that.
It looks like a snuff film.
I love it.
All right, go on. It's everything Rob Zombie puts in a video.
Yes, I'm sure he was inspired by Anton. Anton created the 9 Satanic Statements. We'll go through each one and we'll share any feelings we have about them along the way. I have a lot of feelings, as you might imagine.
I love this.
Number 1, Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Well, I'll be damned, Jerry. This motherfucker struck gold on the very first one. This idea is absolutely central to outsider Satanism. And I do believe indulgence is one of those themes that he touches on consistently through the book. This is directly related to what we were saying earlier about Christianity's denial of the self. This is the inverse. If God represents abstinence from so many earthly pleasures, Satan represents shameless indulgence in those earthly pleasures.
There's a great in between. Abstinence also, we see with the Catholic Church and some of their foibles, it leads to repression. And repression
Right.
leads to, I can't think of the word.
Sex with children.
Well, there was another. I wasn't going to go directly to that.
Yeah. I mean,
but
that's what we're saying,
but
right?
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
There's going to be a valve that has to be opened,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go to the pedophilia aspect
I
immediately.
mean, that's just where I go because
But
that's what it is.
Satan represents indulgence, of course, but I also think in a rational human's mind, indulgence, you just anything in measure is a good thing.
Yeah, and that is a theme that we're going to run into over and over again throughout a lot of Anton's philosophy here. Anton likes to say, I'm sure it'll come up, it's definitely in the book later on, but Anton supports the idea of indulgence without compulsion.
Or
And
guilt.
there is a difference.
Or guilt.
Of course.
And where the Jewish Catholic guilt is huge. I'm
Yes.
going to say Protestants and Baptists, not so much. I'm
Well,
sorry. I'm sorry, God.
a little bit.
A little bit,
Yeah.
but you just
Not
get
as
on
bad.
you get on your knees, say I'm sorry, and do it again.
I think the Catholic guilt is unique.
Catholic and Jewish guilt are huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I can't wait to get to one of these things. We'll talk about it.
All right. Any thoughts on that one? That was it, basically,
Well,
right?
no, I'm learning to do that myself. To indulge in certain things and realize that you're not a terrible person for thinking that. You might have been repressing something that was obviously in your nature. If you're not hurting anybody, which is one of your tenets or whatever, it's close to it.
Sure.
If you're not hurting anybody and still eating a piece of cheesecake, well, then that's good.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even comes, and again, you can't help but tie it to a physical, a sexual look. I mean, this is all about that. I mean, this is a very
the good Lord gave us cheesecake. We might as well eat
this
it.
is all very much about free love.
Yeah,
You
sure,
know,
that's
so
a part.
like,
Sure.
To indulge in what makes you feel good in a lot of ways is bad in other religions. And this one, it says what it is. It says it's okay. And so, but like it's hard to break the.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned, Satan represents shameless indulgence in the earthly pleasures, and that is, I think, an important part of it. There might be a certain connotation that people attach to the idea of shameless, but what I mean by it is literally without shame, without the shame that is put on you from so many other religions. This doesn't offer that.
I believe there should be a little bit of shame.
A little
in
bit of shame?
You know what? It tempers you. You can't. You would be an obnoxious prick if you went out there without any level of like, this won't have repercussions. I'm shameless.
Well, no, I mean, in the context of indulgence, you want to eat the cheesecake. All right, number 2, Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. Vital means energetic or lively. This means basically living with some pep in your step. We call it living your best life. It's a vital existence rather than simply an existence. And pipe dreams are basically unrealistic, unattainable plans. For example, I'm going to be a good person and follow all the rules, and when I die, my magical soul will float from my body up to heaven, where it will live in bliss with the Lord for all of eternity.
Streets of gold.
That, Jerry, is a spiritual pipe dream. For me, driving fast with a pretty girl and listening to Bad Motorfinger is vital existence. Throwing myself out of an airplane a few times on a random Tuesday afternoon is vital existence. You feel me?
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Your examples are very extreme. Mine would be a walk in the park.
Well, sure, that too.
A walk in the park.
It can be whatever we like.
With all of the women.
Yeah, sure. I like a quiet
Or men,
walk on the beach.
or sometimes men. I'm going to do it all now after reading this book.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, without question, this idea comes with us to outsider Satanism, for sure. Any other thoughts on that one, Jerry, number 2?
Spiritual pipe dreams. I mean, yeah, you said it yourself. I'm going to die, and that's it. You can be certain of the life you're leading now.
Yeah.
And if you're unhappy in it, you can change it.
Right.
But if you're unhappy in it, trying to get to a metaphysical...
Yeah. If you're sacrificing everything so that you can indulge in the afterlife, you're going to be
oh my God,
shit out of luck, son.
I don't know. I mean, there was a long time children, when you're a child, you believe that.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
It keeps you in line, and
Sure.
and that's where and that is a huge
Keeping
huge
in
thing.
line is an important part of it. All right, number 3. Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. So this statement and the Satanic Temple's 5th tenet are the same thing. TST worded it this way: beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. That is undefiled wisdom. They go on to say one should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. That is self-deceit. And just to help solidify what this means, let me read not from the Satanic Bible, but from an essay called A Map for the Misdirected, written by the current Church of Satan high priest Peter Gilmore. He says, the Church of Satan has always looked for knowledge to science, both Western and Eastern. We call this undefiled wisdom. And this is the ever-deepening understanding of the nature of the beast called man and the universe in which he exists. We don't accept faith or mysticism. We demand bedrock knowledge, understanding which can come from outward research and observation as well as carnal intuition. So yeah, I am down with this. This is a valuable part of the foundation of outsider Satanism. Your thoughts, Jerry?
I think he had a point that could be acceptable to the masses, but once you throw the carnal aspect in, you're going to turn a lot of people off. So coming from a viewpoint of selling this to people, and I know no one sells anything in these things anymore. They're just stating facts. If you were to just leave that out, it would be a perfectly fine way to live, and other people outside of it would look at it.
Leave what out?
The carnal aspect.
The beast called man.
Yeah.
Stuff?
Well, no, the carnal one. I even think the beast called man people will get behind.
Right.
Because how many people like? I fucking hate people. I love cats. You hear that all the time.
Yeah, just the idea of he mentions carnal intuition.
Yeah, because immediately you're going to assume you're indulging in something. And again, no one and I know that's what we just said versus what we're doing now. I'm talking about from a sales perspective.
Right.
The carnal thing you could have been left out. A carnal intuition's cute. It's fun to say, but it also
well, he's saying we don't accept faith or mysticism.
Right.
We demand bedrock knowledge. And that can come from outward research and observation, as well as carnal intuition. I take that to mean like trust your gut about some things.
Maybe I'm looking at it again as a pervert in a pervy way. Then I
Yes.
apologize. And
you do have a tendency to be.
You know what though? I as soon as you said that or before you said that, I was like, oh, that can mean a lot of things. And I was like, okay, I was out of line. So,
You're out of line.
Edit that out. Make me sound smart.
All right, I'll try and edit that.
No, don't.
Okay,
just keep every stupid thing I say in.
Number 4 is Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Exclamation point. Also, it should be noted that all of his statements end with an exclamation point. They do. I forgot to add that, but
you have
that
to
is
yell
true.
every one of these.
I should shout.
Can I read it?
No, Jerry.
Let me read the one.
Stop it.
Let me yell this shit.
Listen, this statement is essentially saying the same thing as the Satanic Temple's first tenet. And theirs says one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. The difference is in the tone created by the choice of wording. They say the same things, but have different attitudes. Anton's vibe is edgy and kind of salty, and TST makes their effort to be as universally appealing as possible. Anton says kindness, and TST says compassion. Pretty similar, right?
Right.
Anton says to those who deserve it instead of ingrates, and TST says in accordance with reason. Neither one of them are advocating for mandatory universal love or compassion. That would be unrealistic and unreasonable. They are both saying that we should express kindness, compassion, empathy to those who deserve it. Who deserves it is determined by our own individual sense of reason. If someone is an ingrate, to use Anton's example, then it would not necessarily be reasonable to offer them kindness or compassion. How much of your limited time and energy do you really want to spend on ungrateful people? So, yeah, I agree with this one the same way I agree with TST's version of it.
It's a sensible living. It's also it happens all the time. This is how it works. Somebody's an asshole to you, you're going to be an asshole to them.
Right.
Turning the other cheek is not a thing a lot of people do.
And look, we were just talking about carnal intuition.
Yeah.
And that plays into all of this. Like I said, we use our own individual sense of reason. Right. And that's just what that is. You get a vibe. You're a person who deserves kindness from me. or you're not. You get that vibe in all of your interactions. And that's natural. That's normal.
And I think that's the thing that's going through all of these. These are normal reactions to normal things that happen to you.
Yeah.
Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Well, fuck that guy. Or or if you get something in your soup, they you know what I mean? It's a different
we use our individual tolerances for whatever and decide how we feel about it.
I love how all these sort of say the same thing over and over again, but keep it going.
Sure. So the aim of acting with kindness to those who deserve it is definitely a part of our outsider Satanism.
Christianity would be closer to love thy neighbor no matter what. Pray for them. I don't know if he said it in here, but prayer is almost abusive. If you find somebody like in the South, if they think you're doing something like unruly or dumb, they'll be like, "Oh, bless your heart." That's the thing. Yes. So prayer is more of a change this motherfucker because he's a piece of shit, and you're asking God to do it for you, and you hope. And if I knew God could do that for me, I would do it for everybody. Since I sell cars, I'd be like, please let this motherfucker buy the Corolla and get the goddamn wax in the tires.
Yeah, please, Lord, give me what I want right now.
Yeah, give it now.
Yeah, I'm down with all this Satan business, but I'm praying all the time, just in case. I pray all the time for the Lord to bring me pizza right now. Please, Lord, if you can hear me, take me away right now.
There ain't so many times
he never does it.
Yeah, so many times I look at that goddamn lottery ticket and say I'm the most religious man in the world looking at a $250 million lottery ticket.
Yeah, damn right. I'll pray if it'll make a difference. All right. Number 5, Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. All right. This is an interesting one, Jerry. I've got a lot to say about this, maybe. What is vengeance? I'm obsessed with finding the definition of words, right? I want to know what the actual definition is. I always do that. This one is defined as punishment inflicted or retribution exacted for an injury or wrong. Now, this section would get really long if I allow myself to dive deep into the various interpretations of the phrase turning the other cheek, which was my original plan here. But instead of that, I will try to keep it simple. First, the origin of turn the other cheek. It comes from the New Testament, specifically the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 38 and 39. It says, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also." Over time, people have casually paraphrased that into turn the other cheek, and most often it is taken to represent a form of pacifism, basically. Just ignore them. You've been wronged, do not react. It almost invites the aggressor to attack some more. Some view that as a form of protest, and like I said, there are other, in some cases, very detailed interpretations of this. I think it might be a bit too narrow to view it all in the limited context of physical violence. It could perhaps be applied to any number of scenarios where you felt attacked or wronged in some way. Maybe you think, well, I've been fucked with, so I'm going to fuck with you right back. And then the other guy has to retaliate. And back and forth we go, and more damage is done to more people, be it physical, emotional, whatever. But it is exactly that Anton is suggesting here. He says Satan represents vengeance. I've said before that I won't just pick random values or ideas to attach to my Satanism. I'll do my best to find some sort of actual connection to the character of Satan or pre-existing satanic philosophy. But in at least some cases, I think attaching random values to Satan is exactly what Anton did, including right here. Where in the vast lore of Satan do we see vengeance? No. Plenty of people have written about Satan waging a war in heaven, but there are lots of different suggestions as to what his motives were for doing that. I could go into those, but again, we'll be here all day. But one story does stand out from the so-called romantic Satanists. In the case of Revolt of the Angels, Satan decides to call off a planned war against heaven. He says, God conquered will become Satan. Satan conquering will become God. May the fates spare me this terrible lot. I suppose one could say that Satan turned the other cheek in that example. I got to say, Jerry, I'm a little torn about this one. I would suggest that every unique scenario requires one to consider the most appropriate response based on any number of factors, including what the potential repercussions of that response will be. Are there moments when vengeance of some kind is appropriate? Yes. There's nothing in the statement that says vengeance is required in 100% of situations or anything like that. We've already discussed kindness or compassion to those who deserve it. And in this case, I think we're talking about vengeance to those who deserve it. When I started thinking about this section, I kind of rolled my eyes thinking about Anton just being edgy. But it's one of those hard truths that he mentioned early on. We don't want to think of ourselves as some vengeful beings, but look deep within yourself and consider what you would do if you turned a corner and found someone doing something harmful or terrible to your child or your partner or your dog. I don't know about you, but I would snap into fucking Batman mode in about 1 second.
I'm vengeance.
So, somewhat to my own surprise, I'm saying yes to vengeance when it feels appropriate as judged by me, the individual. And that feels like the most obvious, natural answer.
It is. You make a lot of points there. Vengeance also requires effort. You had covered this in the
Yes.
in the forgiveness thing, where it's easier just to forgive, just to say I fucking forgive you, so you don't have to deal with the act. Vengeance is a passionate act. If somebody punches me, I'm gonna punch them back. Very rarely do you look for a vengeance. If people just do you wrong, you're usually just like, I'm not gonna mess with that guy anymore. This is more of a opinion of a teenager, or a child, a hormonal person. That's how it is to me. And also the vengeance aspect. It's like if he attached to Satan. In the Old Testament, God is a wrathful God, a vengeful God.
Yes.
This is not just exclusive.
Sadistic.
This is not exclusive to Lucifer. I mean,
Right.
This is everyone. I mean, Allah. Everyone has a vengeful moment where they believe they have to fuck with people. Lot's wife didn't deserve to turn into a pillar of salt.
That's right.
But he warned that bitch, don't turn around.
Yeah.
And then she did, and then now
Jerry, we don't say bitch.
and now she's the original Salt Bae. And so there's all of this vengeance and act and all that other stuff requires acts of passion, acts of horror. In fact, even the sexual aspect. This is the ramblings. Sorry,
You love the sexual aspect.
No,
You're very sexual today.
I'm not very sexual. I'm gonna tell you why I feel this way. This is the ramblings of either a repressed man or a teenager.
Yeah.
Because
Well, he had a youthful spirit
did he
about
though?
him.
Because
Maybe.
we're sitting there in homeroom and you call me a fucker, and in front of the hottest chick in the room, I want vengeance. You do that to me
Right.
now, I'm gonna be like,
who cares?
I'm just gonna leave the room.
Yeah.
So this is a passion,
Well, perhaps that, you're just describing maturity, maybe.
and he's not. This is not maturity.
You're upset about it.
I'm not upset about it, but I am a little upset about it. But like all of this stuff is somebody who didn't get a lot of this stuff and wants it, or got a lot of this stuff and doesn't understand why people don't want it.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are.
So you feel generally like Anton is maybe a little edgy.
I think he's edgy for edgy's sake on occasion.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like theater.
Yes.
This is all theater.
He certainly,
Not all
look,
theater.
we'll say it a million times, Anton is a showman, right?
Yeah,
Like
P.T.
that's his
Barnum.
deal.
I wouldn't say all theater. I take that back because there's some salient, cogent points in here
For sure.
And so I get it. But some of these things like it's saying the same thing. If those who deserve it, this TSD did it right by knocking it down to 7 because the 4 and 5 are almost the same fucking thing.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So and again, I'm sorry for cursing. I should make.
Yeah, we don't talk like that.
I
Jerry.
should be.
You're using Christian language.
Well, I want this to be given to the masses, and I want us to be commercial. So
Okay.
if I say bitch and fuck the whole time, then we're
going to be in trouble.
we'll have we're gonna be it's gonna be an issue.
All right.
But
Let's move on, shall we? The next one. Number
favorite
6 is Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. All right. What the hell is a psychic vampire? Later on in the book, Anton gives us some insight into psychic vampires. He says, many people who walk the earth practice the fine art of making others feel responsible and even indebted to them without cause. Satanism observes these leeches in their true light. Psychic vampires are individuals who drain others of their vital energy. This type of person can be found in all avenues of society. They fill no useful purpose in our lives and are neither love objects nor true friends. I bet we've all experienced some of these people, and none of us have enjoyed it.
Hey, you're right. Somebody who's
A leech
somebody
on your life.
who's near you. Yeah, I'm a leech.
Yeah.
I'm a leech.
Overall, this statement is about personal responsibility. I have another quote here from Peter Gilmore just to reinforce this idea. He says, "We Satanists drain the cup of life and through informed choice and full personal responsibility, handle the results of our decisions with skill and grace. We ain't prudes, neither are we out of control." He also adds, "The Satanist does what he wishes, taking full responsibility for all consequences to his actions." I think this is hard to argue with. Of course, we should have personal responsibility. There's no good reason to blame others for your choices or your shortcomings. I think you should own your victories and you should own your mistakes. And of course, we would all benefit from having a life free from these psychic vampires. So yeah, I'm down with this idea too.
Yeah, it's a good way to live. I love the accepting of your victories and accepting of your defeats. That's normal, rational thought. Again, a complete plot point, this whole thing. Rational thought.
They almost feel like his two parts of this statement. Satan represents responsibility. The responsible is one part, and then the psychic vampires is the other. And I guess they do belong together, but they almost feel like they could be two separate things, like two separate parts of that to expand upon. And he does later in the book.
The company you keep is really what that's saying, you know?
Yeah. And the psychic vampire doesn't adhere to the personal responsibility part.
Right. And what is confession other than making you say what you did in some level of atonement, feel bad about it, do it over, and would that be some level of psychic vampirism?
Well, no. I mean, the idea of owning up to it, a confession or an apology or a thing, in a sense, that is taking responsibility. Mm-hmm. That's saying, yeah, I take responsibility. I fucked up. Here I am to admit that and own it, and I accept the consequences because it was my doing. Okay. Rather than try to put it off on someone else. Oh, well, I couldn't do it because Jerry,
I am a psychic vampire then.
Exactly.
I do not take responsibility for any of this shit.
That's true. All right. Number 7, Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who, because of his divine, spiritual, and intellectual development, has become the most vicious animal of all. Anton is really coming to us with a bunch of these maybe uncomfortable truths. You'll find that most people out there elevate themselves as a species over the rest of the animals that share the planet with us. We're different, obviously, but we're certainly not inherently better. If you observe the natural world, you'll find that many animals participate in some pretty ruthless behavior. Above all else, they are fighting for survival. They don't have the luxury of relaxing in a comfortable chair, ordering a pizza, and feeling pretty secure that nothing is about to kill them. So when you consider human creations like nuclear weapons, genocides, and countless other horrific behaviors, what makes us better? We might be smarter in some ways. We can make cool things like rockets and refrigerators, which are admittedly pretty great. But with all of our intelligence and our acknowledgement of things like compassion, we still manage to be the most vicious animal of all. So once again, Anton is not wrong. I think I'm with him here.
When I read this, if a hyena had our mental capability, it would do the same thing. It would find a way to wipe out what it would try to kill it.
Sure.
I mean, we just have the option of doing so. We do. And
we've gotten to a point, because of all of our advancements, that we essentially have no natural predators.
No, except for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's unique in that we keep, now we're just doing shit to do shit. we solved a lot of our problems a long time ago. After the Black Plague, they were like, let's get some garbage out. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
let's do what we do. We
Well,
solved a lot of
not even the Black Plague. Like, go back farther. Like, oh, we can build shelter.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to
fire.
live under a tree
Fire.
with a lion or something, you
The
know?
rudimentary things, but we do things to do things now.
Yeah.
And regardless, we are hurting the world. Lithium mining, fracking, things like that. Yeah, we would be
I
considered.
mean, above all else, we're hurting ourselves.
we're hurting ourselves in the long run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm on it, but I also think if something had the mental capability and as advanced as us, it would do the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
From mice all the way up to us. You
Yeah.
know? So
If they could, they would,
if
is
they
what
could,
you're saying.
they would, man.
Yeah.
I and also hail PETA. Because that sounds like a complete PETA.
Yes.
Ave Petanis.
Yeah. Well, I think he's not wrong here.
No.
He's just pointing out one of those uncomfortable truths, and you know, it's kind of a bummer, but he's on the money.
Right.
The next one, number 8. Satan represents all of the so-called sins as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. Now, this is a big one here. This is referring to what we know as the 7 deadly sins. Fun fact, they are also known as the capital vices or cardinal sins. The sins in question are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. So let's go through these sins together and see how we feel about them. We're going to go through them. First up is lust. It is defined as very strong sexual desire. To me, this isn't even a Satan discussion. This is just a human discussion. I see nothing wrong with lust, and I enjoy the feeling. Almost every person has felt it or will feel it.
Right.
And this one illustrates one of the most glaring differences between Satanism and Christianity. This is a completely natural human feeling, and Christianity tells you that it's a sin. And it's not like you can even avoid it. You don't make a conscious choice to feel it. It just happens to you. You know, Jerry, you're a young man. You're looking through your Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
Swimsuit issue, man.
You know, you see that Kathy Ireland back in the day,
Did love Kathy
or
Ireland.
whatever,
Wow,
whatever you're into.
yeah, right now, I'm experiencing strong lust.
Thank you.
Sexual desire
For me?
no. What you're explaining, and by proxy, I'm putting Kathy Ireland's head on your body right
Thank
now.
you.
This is so hot.
Yeah, what do you think about this? I mean, lust is fine, right?
Lust is also a natural. It's how we procreate. It's the beginning of how the species populates.
Not me. Vasectomy.
Oh yeah, you know, you see another thing.
Science.
Humans are the most vicious animal in the world.
That's right.
They cut penises.
We can feel lust without procreation.
That's another thing.
Uh-oh.
Satanism doesn't require you to mutilate my penis.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Because the foreskin. I mean, again, I've had a lot of talks about this. I don't think there's any. It pisses me off that they took a little bit of my penis. I needed every bit of it.
Yeah.
I needed every bit of my penis.
I never wanted it. I was fine. I'm circumcised as well, if it's all right to say to everybody. I'm sorry if it's too personal.
I am.
I am circumcised. And most of my life, I was cool with it. I'm like, yeah, I want to be circumcised. I guess it's okay this way. But now, later on in life, I kind of wish I hadn't been. I would like to have that little extra sheath of protection.
I'm just saying more
This
surface.
is probably a lot of detail that's off track.
More
We don't need
surface area.
We don't need
I
to do
needed.
this.
But it's part of the show.
But the idea is lust, and
It's natural. You got to start somewhere, and that's the first part. And unfortunately, it sends you to hell.
yeah. And so keep in mind, as we're going through these sins, this is all part of Anton's 8th statement, which is Satan represents all the sins. And so we're going to go through the sins and see how we feel about them if we're on board with Anton here. As far as lust goes, I say, yeah, I'm pro-lust.
Fuck yeah.
All right. Our next sin is gluttony. Gluttony is habitual greed or excess in eating. Now, habitual indicates that something is a habit and is done in excess. Anton's philosophy supports indulgence without compulsion. To me, habitual greed or excess in eating indicates compulsion. And because of that, I don't think gluttony is a good thing. I don't think the idea of overdoing something, which is generally negative or harmful, leads to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. So I actually disagree here. Based on my understanding of the word, gluttony isn't something to pursue.
No, it's addiction too. I mean, in anything done, as we talked about earlier in the show, measures. Things done in measure are fine.
Yeah.
Gluttony,
You can have a drink. Drinking is okay. Getting hammered into oblivion all the time,
alcoholism
not so great.
is an addiction.
Yeah.
And anything that you overdo will, and if it affects everyone around you, or it just becomes your sole purpose or the only thing that you can enjoy or not as an indulgence, well, then it's not worth your time.
Yeah.
So gluttony could be considered the worst one. I mean, there are days where you can eat a whole pizza, and that's fine. And that's gluttony. That is also a sin. Not sin, but it's gluttony. You eat a whole pizza.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Yeah, but I mean, just the idea, like, to me, if you eat a whole pizza 4 times a week, that's bad news.
Ain't good.
All right. But if you eat a whole pizza once in a year, all right. That makes it an indulgence.
For sure.
That's a temporary indulgence. That's a momentary thing. But when you get into habitual greed or habitual anything, that's problematic.
Right. But greed I'm shaky on.
Well, greed's next. We'll get right to that one. This was gluttony. So yeah, I'm not on team gluttony. I'm half a Christian on this one.
We agree.
All right. Greed is defined as intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. This one is also a little tricky. I think the desire for wealth, power, food, or most anything is completely natural. Where it gets sticky for me is the addition of the word selfish. It's called a selfish desire for something. And selfish means basically lacking consideration for others. I think a reasonable balance is the best option, and that's probably a thing I'll say a million times throughout all of this. It's perfectly reasonable and doable to feel a desire for things without a lack of consideration for others. So I'm not all about this one.
Selfish is the operative word, but I also think greed in some cases can be ambition. Ambition is not a bad thing, but again, ambition is also linked to selfish act.
Well, and we're going to touch on that when we get to envy, also.
Okay, so ambition and the want to obtain things. Greed is goal based. I want this. I need more of this. I need it. It's never enough, and I understand that. If you hurt people along the way, it's only going to come back to you. I mean, the people you step on up the ladder are the ones that are going to see when you fall down, and that's true. I've been there, and I've been up and down. Yeah. So I understand that, and there's a great maturity that has to come with that. Yeah. So
it talks about greed is an intense desire for something. So on the face of it, I want more pizza. Mm-hmm. I just want it. I want a lot of pizza right now. We're going to keep talking about pizza this whole episode because I love pizza. Yeah. But I want more pizza, so I can order more pizzas and I can have them. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. I'll buy them for me and I will eat them. Whereas if we're at our little party and we've got 2 pizzas and I'm going to eat it all and not share with anybody else, that is selfish and bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas just wanting pizza and getting pizza is okay. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. The difference for me is the addition of selfish into the mix, and that's where it turns me off, and that's why I'm not on team greed.
No, when you eat, your dogs eat. I like that.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. You with me on this greed?
I agree. Greed is good. I'm sorry, man.
All right, we're not on. Jerry is pro greed.
No, I'm not. I believe that if it's ambition, yes. If it's hoarding, no.
To me, the whole thing hinges on selfish, which is a lack of consideration for others.
That word is the biggest out.
That's the problem.
And I have a ton of that.
Yeah.
So, but I think of everyone.
Right.
But no, the selfish one is the hook. So I'm in the middle there.
Yeah. Selfish is the thing that turns me away from it.
And I'm not an ambitious person, but I understand the outlook. Yeah. It's a very like being a fan of hip hop. There is a deadly focus to getting where you need to go. You don't step on other people. You try not to, but sometimes it's unavoidable. Some people want to be stepped on.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a true Anton LaVey.
All right.
I'm going to step on a motherfucker.
All right. Next up, sloth. It is reluctance to work or make an effort, laziness. I sense a theme here as far as my own feelings about these things. And I think it comes down to a healthy balance, basically. Is there a time and place for being reluctant to work or to be lazy? Absolutely, of course. We all need a day like that every once in a while, a day to just relax, free your mind, recharge the battery a little bit. But of course, when that becomes a significant part of how you live life, I think that's not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend a person lean into sloth as a way of life. So I suppose I'm kind of neutral on this one.
I think you wake up that way. And people who get up and go to a job they don't want to do to do what they do. They do almost the minimal amount. That could be considered sloth, and that's a bad way to approach anything. Sloth, laziness, it's my natural state. So I'd rather not do anything, and get the money that I prayed for with the lottery ticket.
Right.
It is bad. I like the lazy day, but I don't think that's what that means. I don't think that means like a recharge or a refresh of the batteries. No, that's just generally people don't want to do shit and just sit there. So yeah, this is a bad one. Sloth is not good. Being lazy is not good, especially when, if you're a parent or you're trying to get somewhere. And I sound like I'm this ambitious, greedy guy. You know me. I'm not. I just think
it's just a healthy balance.
Yeah,
in life. Like so many. Look, of course, if you're either extreme in most things, it's probably not good.
Right.
If you're way off, if you're way into sloth and you're just a lazy fuck all the time, you don't want to do shit. You're just not that guy. That's one problem. But then there's the go all the time workaholic, ignores his family. He's got to, keep working, and that's detrimental in its own way.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's like you said, everything in measure. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But yeah, I'm going to say that this is probably like the one I would probably be least interested in.
Okay. You're not for sloth.
Not at all.
All right. Wrath is next. Wrath is simply an extreme anger. Again, anger is a feeling. We don't generally choose to feel it. It just happens. And when it happens, does it feel good? No. I don't like to feel angry. But I was thinking that this definition of extreme anger felt maybe a little oversimplified. So I looked around at some other sources, and they add an additional definition of vengeance or punishment as the consequence of anger. That sounds more like wrath to me. That's how we kind of know it. I've usually connected it with an action of some kind rather than just a feeling. Now, when you're angry enough that it causes you to act out in a response to that anger, are you likely to make the most informed, rational decision? Absolutely not. When people react out of anger in that moment, it would be reasonable to say that they are out of control. I suspect wrath leads to a lot of regret and probably more than a few prison sentences. And I would be remiss in my duties here if I didn't recall everyone's favorite example of wrath in popular culture. What is it, Jerry?
This would be Kevin Spacey and Brad Pitt and What's in the Box.
Seven, the film Seven, of course.
Yeah.
Let me paint a picture for you. Spoiler alert, everyone. Imagine for a moment John Doe's directions lead the detectives to a remote, deserted location. Minutes after their arrival, a delivery van approaches. Detective Mills holds Doe at gunpoint while Detective Somerset intercepts the driver, who says he was instructed to deliver a box to their location. Somerset opens the box and, in sudden panic, tells Mills to stay back. Doe reveals that he himself represents the sin of envy, as he envies Mills' life with his wife Tracy, and implies that the box contains Tracy's severed head.
Put the gun down. I saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
No, what's in the box? Not until you give me the gun. What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
He just told you.
You lied! You're a fucking liar! Shut up!
That's what he wants. He wants you to shoot him.
No! No!
Become vengeance, David.
Oh, she's all right. You tell me.
Become wrath.
Tell me she's all right!
You murder a suspect, David.
No!
Just threw it all away, you know.
No!
She begged for her life, Detective.
Shut up!
She begged for her life.
Shut up.
And for the life of the baby inside of her.
He goads Mills, telling him that Tracy begged for her life and the life of her unborn child, and reacts with surprise and delight when he realizes Mills was unaware that his wife was pregnant. Despite Somerset's warnings, an enraged Mills fulfills his role as Wrath and shoots John Doe fatally and repeatedly, completing Doe's plan. Somerset and the police captain watch as the devastated Mills is taken away. What a great fucking movie that is.
Yeah. That part. Oh, he didn't know. Oh. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's like, what a fun
and that's
movie.
the perfect example, right? The guy acted out of extreme anger.
Right.
He was caught off guard. What? You killed my wife? What? She was pregnant? I've got a gun in my hand? Blam. He acts. He is vengeance. And, what becomes of him after that? Probably not good.
But it's funny that you played that. It's the first thing I thought of, even before you played that. So Wrath and Vengeance, it's the extreme version of it. And I guess that's Wrath. You so sparingly do you use the word wrathful. You don't. Like, I was full of wrath. No one uses I can't even place a moment other than like an instantaneous like flash shot. Like if I was like sucker punched.
Sure.
That like something like that. But I can't really name a moment where wrath became a thing in a certain like that. It's justified. That's a sin. That's an indulgence I can understand. I mean, that's all of it. Dead kid, fucking headless woman, blah blah blah, all that shit. I mean, it's totally understandable.
Sure.
But you've met people who fly off the handle. Like you've been around people who play video games and then they throw the controller as hard as they can at the You've been around that.
Yeah, but even just the idea, if wrath is, for me, it requires the action, right? It's not just the feeling of anger. It's the action based on that anger. And because it is just a reaction in anger, you don't get to consider it. You don't get to think it through. You don't consider all of the repercussions, like we said. And so that's going to lead to trouble. A guy in a bar gives you some shit. You know what I mean? You just start throwing punches maybe. You're going to maybe regret this, either through legal action or physical injury or getting banned from your favorite bar. Who knows? It could be any number of problems.
More likely you're going to get stomped and banned.
You might. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really recommend Wrath. And really, if I want vengeance, I'd much rather take my time to be calculated and thorough, like a Dexter vibe, maybe.
Best served cold.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. All right, that was Wrath. Moving on, we've got Envy. Envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. On one hand, I think you can look at your neighbor's car or house or whatever it is, and your desire for those nice things might serve as a motivation. We were talking about this earlier. Maybe that's the extra little kick in the ass you needed to start actively working towards some goals. But envy, as it's defined with discontented and resentful feelings, is not good. And really, there's no good reason for it. Your neighbor having a nice car isn't the thing that's holding you back from having one. The thing that's holding you back is you. Envy is just your salty way of redirecting negative feelings about yourself onto someone else. So to embrace envy this way is completely counter to the focus on personal responsibility that we discussed earlier. So no, I don't find envy to be beneficial or a feeling that leads to physical, mental, or emotional gratification, as Anton said.
I agree. I think envy sometimes you can justify it by saying envy or jealousy is inspiration. It's not that. It's not the case. I sparingly see people. I work in doing cars. People will come in and say, "I saw my neighbor's car. I like that a lot, and I bought it." It was more of an inspiration than it was a jealousy aspect of it all, or envy. So like I'm not a fan of envy. I don't look at somebody and then like, oh fuck that. Well, no, sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because there's some people
It can happen to you. Look at this motherfucker.
Look at this piece of shit.
Why does he get this fucking nice car? I've been busting my ass for 30 years.
But you're consciously doing it. If you're saying it, and maturity will have it. Because I was thinking about sometimes you'll look at a guy with a girl and be like, or vice versa, and be like, man, they outkicked their coverage on that one. If you would rather have that, or you would do it better. So like there's the issue.
And what does she want him for? This motherfucker
must be funny.
I'm far more charming and handsome than this son of a bitch.
Probably a musician. So like, no,
envy's not great.
No, I don't recommend it. Yeah. Inspiration is something you should fill that with.
Yeah, and it's just like I said, like the feeling of like wanting stuff. Maybe it's an inspiration or a goal or whatever. That's good. But when you start having negative feelings about the other person or whatever, that's not too healthy.
Not good. And it's funny, every one of these has one fatal. Like every definition has one word.
That's
like,
it.
Extreme or an addiction. He's like, God, I wish if you could take selfish or extreme out of it. It's
and I'm so
because
definition. Of that, like everything is a little bit subjective, right? We interpret things. Everything comes with its own sort of connotation that we've built in our mind over our lifetimes, And that's why I like to look up the words. I'm obsessed with like knowing what it actually fucking means. I just assume that modern, up-to-date dictionary definitions are accepted.
Sure.
If we don't have language in common, then we're pretty much fucked. So I like a definition. The last of the sins that Anton mentions is pride. There are a few different meanings for pride, but I think the one most relevant here is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements, the achievements of those with whom one is closely associated, or from qualities or possessions that are widely admired. On the face of it, I don't see anything wrong with pride. If you've worked hard at something or created or accomplished something significant, by all means, you should feel pride and be welcomed to express that. But once again, there is a matter of balance. It's certainly possible that one can cross the line from expressing a sense of pride into boastful asshole territory.
Braggart.
Braggadocious. What are your thoughts on pride?
I think pride's a good thing. I think if you can be happy, be prideful. But again, don't be a braggart, Don't be an obnoxious prick about it. Like, look what I did. I've met people here in sales. You hear them all the time. I sold 17 cars and I got all this, and you hear it all the time. Like, I know, but now you're saying it. That's not pride. To me, it's more like being insecure. People who brag too much are insecure. I don't think that definition has it. Pride being, I'm happy. When I see my daughter make a good decision, I feel pride.
Yeah.
When I'm able to provide, I'm proud of what I did.
Yeah, well, it does. It includes, a feeling of deep pleasure, satisfaction derived from one's own achievements or the achievements of those with whom one is closely associated.
So I don't.
So your daughter's achievements, that's something you can be proud of.
I feel good about it. So I don't believe that that's a bad pride. I think later this book goes into why pride is an unavoidable sin.
Sure.
But I don't think that that's, pride. I think it's being mistaken for being overzealous in your accomplishments and not letting anyone forget that you did them.
Yeah.
So that's upsetting.
Let me ask you a question. There's lots of ways that people can feel or express pride about whatever it is, but there's a difference. Like when I was talking about it, it was about like if you've created something or accomplished something, basically that's something you can be proud of. So let's think about some things about Jerry, just some truths about Jerry. You're a man. Mm-hmm. You're straight. Mm-hmm. You're white. Mm-hmm. Those are all truths about you. And some other truths about you are you create paintings. Mm-hmm. So let's take that. You might create a work of art, and maybe you're into it. You sometimes feel proud of your work, right? You create a thing, you're proud of it. Is that different than feeling pride about those other parts of yourself? Are you proud to be a man? Are you proud to be white? Are you proud to be straight? Because you're just born those things. You didn't do shit to get them, but you did shit to make that painting. That was an effort that you achieved there.
So we're going by accomplishment versus
Just wherever you landed in the world.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, there's no pride in that. It's working with the tools that you're assigned.
Right.
But
we know that a lot of people do express that, right?
No, there's white pride and there's male pride, and of course I get it. I understand it. It's okay.
Gay pride.
It's okay.
There's a Cain Velasquez, brown pride.
I saw brown pride. I think, but it really, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But that doesn't need to be stated. Yeah. And if you see people out there, it's like, I'm proud to be white. Yeah, it's nice. I'm proud to be black. You see, you see it all.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't.
Yeah, I feel like there's, I don't even know how to put it, but there's like maybe a different category or something. Like, I'm proud to be whatever I just happened to be when I fell out of the womb.
Well, I get that. But when it becomes dangerous is when it becomes tribal.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is like when like I can't coexist with anybody else that isn't as proud of me as it is. And you know what I mean? Like, so like when it becomes more of a village thing and less of a global thing, well, then that might be a problem. Yeah. Be proud of yourself, the way you present yourself. Be proud. You did this thing. You're here and you're here in the now. You've survived this far. There's a level of pride in that. You're doing a great job, unless you're a colossal sloth-filled piece of shit. But but go out and do your thing. But yeah, I think that pride can become almost fanaticism. You see, actually, sometimes it's pride in your hometown football team.
Sure.
Like I'm a Cleveland Browns fan.
Yeah, right. So you didn't do shit.
I didn't do shit.
You didn't catch one ball.
No, but like I said, I'm a fan of the Browns. I'm proud of the Cleveland Browns. There will be an Eagles fan in the background. Fuck the Browns. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Why? What did they do? Wait, what did they do to you?
Yeah.
And like now this becomes his pride versus my pride, and then it's an issue.
Yeah.
And maybe that's when it can become more menacing. But like, nothing wrong with pride as long as it's not obnoxious, as long as it's not hurting other people, as long as you're not subjugating or humiliating another person's pride, for lack of a better pride.
Sure. And just like I said, like so many of them, I feel like there's just a natural balance required.
For sure.
Pride is fine. Turning over to the boastful asshole line, crossing that line is maybe not so good.
All 9 of these things, done in measure, are fine.
Yeah.
Except for wrath. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, all right, let's get back on track here. So all of those 7 deadly sins, that was the last of the sins. And all of the sins were part of Anton's 8th satanic statement. We're still in his satanic statements. And that 8th one was, Satan represents all of the so-called sins, as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. I do not agree with the premise that all of these things deliver a net positive to the sinner. I don't think so.
Right.
I think Anton was perhaps so hell-bent on being anti-Christian that he skipped over quite a bit of the real world nuance that comes along with it all. But all right, we've got just one last of the satanic statements. Number 9, Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. And there it is. Classic Anton. He makes some sense. He makes you think. He gets you on his side, and then he says some ridiculous shit and ruins it. Anton was a showman. He understood the importance of presentation. He makes a whole list of statements, Jerry, that all start with Satan represents. But then the last one is different. And not only that, it's also pointless. It doesn't describe anything about how the Satanist feels or acts, or anything about his philosophy. And let's be real, the church is what has kept the Church of Satan in business for all these years. So this is just a silly one-liner, and there isn't really anything of substance there.
It's good copy. It's advertising.
Yeah.
It's almost a tagline. It belongs inside of a Happy Meal.
Right. I feel like, not unlike, and man, the parallels, I didn't even think of this until just this moment. But many times I've said of the Satanic Temple's 7 tenets, I feel like tenet number 7 is almost a bit of a summary of the previous tenets. And it almost could exist as 6 tenets with a little statement at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And this feels the same. This isn't one of those statements. It doesn't feel like the other ones at all.
It's wholly out of place, and it's only meant to antagonize. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's
do
nothing
anything.
there.
There's nothing there. It's just it's only to fight.
Yeah.
That's a fight. That's what you say. Hey, listen, you don't like what the fuck I'm saying. I'm the reason you exist.
Right.
So like
Without darkness, there is no light.
Thank you, Tim Curry. Fucking love that scene.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's that for the Satanic Statements.
I mean, I would ask you this question. You lead a faction of sorts.
Yes. A faction of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does, and I'm not going to put you in this guy's level and say, where does theater, these types of statements, advertising, where does that factor in your? We're doing a podcast
for my group for Satanic Delco.
Satanic Delco, or this thing, have you ever had something like that at the end of something and been like, yeah, like I mean, how does advertising to the public work for you? Because this is only there for people who are not Satanists. This is only here for others to read, to research it, to build and to fucking load the chamber.
I don't.
And to build an argument.
I don't get into much of that personally. I'm not, like against it or whatever. I don't think it's wrong or a bad idea. It's just not usually my flavor. But the one, like for example, sometimes I make posts on Instagram stories and stuff of whatever the group is up to or the podcast or any of it, and we do our greetings from hell thing every month. So sometimes I post up a little story. It's like a little vintage illustration of a postman, and I'll put shit on there like y'all are going to hell, stuff like that. But it's just, playing off the silly ideas that people outside of Satanism might have. But I suspect that not even many of those people ever see it. It's mostly for us.
Right.
We know it's an in-joke. We're just playing with the idea. We don't think we're going to hell, but it's fun to talk about.
I'd say there's a level of theater, and I've said it 100 times. This is almost pro wrestling. That last statement was a heel. There's baby faces and heels. Baby faces are good guys, and heels are bad guys.
Right. Oh yeah,
and
Anton loved to be the heel.
He wanted to be the heel.
Yeah.
So like at the end, like we are here for you. It makes it an emphatic statement, and at that point he's waiting for the baby face comeback. He's waiting for somebody to come at him at this point.
Yeah.
And the rest of the book. I mean, after the 9, I was like, well, what's the rest of this shit going to be about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, but yeah, I love, no matter what, and we're going to go through this whole book, I imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one thing that will remain is my love of this dramatic showmanship. It's P.T. Barnum, it's Vince McMahon, it's all of it. And it's not without its flaws, but it gets the point across, and it gets a reaction. And I like that.
Yeah. All right, Jerry. I think this is where we'll stop for now. We've got a lot more of the Satanic Bible to get through, so we'll pick up right here next time. In the meantime, if you could visit the website at hailsatanpodcast.com. I'd like you to stay safe out there, and hail Satan.
Snåla, men det skydde ned. I går fri, ser du,